She said it quietly, the way people say things they want everyone to hear. You really wore that? My sister-in-law tilted her head, her eyes moving slowly down my dress, the way you'd look at something left on the sidewalk after a garage sale? To a rehearsal dinner? God, I hope you at least got it on sale. The table laughed. Not all of them, but enough. My brother, my younger brother, the one I drove to soccer practice for 4 years because our parents worked doubles, the one I co-signed a lease for when his credit was a disaster, the one I lent $11,000 to when his startup was 2 weeks from collapse. He was sitting 3 feet away. He picked up his wine glass and examined it like it had suddenly become the most interesting object in the room. He didn't say a word. I didn't cry. I didn't excuse myself to the bathroom. I sat very still with my hands folded in my lap, and I thought, okay, let's do this. I want to tell you something before I get into what happened next. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from and what time it is. I want to know how far this reaches. The rehearsal dinner was being held at a restaurant called 11 Oaks, a private dining venue on the 2nd floor of a renovated textile mill in Asheville, North Carolina. Original exposed brick, hand-poured concrete floors, Edison bulb chandeliers. It seated 80. There was a waiting list to book it. I know because I own it. Not the restaurant itself, the building, the LLC that holds the deed to the property transferred to my name 14 months ago, when the previous owner, a retired contractor named Mr. Beaumont, who'd spent 6 years trying to turn the old mill into something, finally ran out of patience and capital. I stepped in. I paid cash for 60% and carried the rest through a private note. He retired to Hilton Head. I started doing what I do, which is take broken things and make them worth something. I do this for a living. I identify distressed commercial real estate, buildings in probate, properties with deferred maintenance that have scared off institutional buyers, industrial spaces that need vision more than money, and I turn them around. I've done it 11 times in 9 years. I am not wealthy in the way people imagine when they hear the word wealthy. I drive a 6-year-old Honda CR-V. I wear clothes I like, which means I spend $40 on a dress from a boutique in West Asheville and do not think about it again. I don't perform money. I never have. My family has no idea what I do. Not really. They know I'm in real estate. They imagine I help people buy houses. My brother thinks I rent apartments. My sister-in-law, whose name is Astrid, thinks I got lucky once and have been coasting. My mother thinks I work too hard for too little. She has said this to me directly, while living in a house I helped save from foreclosure. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The rehearsal dinner was a Friday night in October. 42 guests. My brother was marrying Astrid in 2 days, and I had flown in from Seattle because he was my brother, and despite everything, I still showed up for family. That's the thing about being the responsible one. You keep showing up even when it costs you something. I had walked into 11 Oaks that evening the way I always walk into my properties, quietly through the front door like anyone else. I greeted the event coordinator, a woman named Petra who works for the company that rents the space, and I took my seat at the table assigned to me, family table, except I had been placed at the far end, 2 seats from the corner, next to my brother's college roommate who I'd met once, and a woman I didn't recognize who turned out to be Astrid's aunt visiting from Phoenix. The seat next to my brother was empty for 20 minutes and then filled by Astrid's best friend, who had apparently needed that spot for what she called sentimental reasons. I noticed the way you notice things when you've spent your whole life being relocated to the edge of other people's important moments. Astrid made her comment about my dress during the appetizer course. Burrata with heirloom tomatoes. The chef had sourced them from a farm 40 minutes outside the city. I know because I'd approved the vendor relationship myself when we onboarded the restaurant group last spring. After the laughter settled, her mother, a woman from Connecticut who had the posture of someone who had spent 60 years being correct about everything, leaned across the table toward me and said, not unkindly but not kindly either, "Don't worry, sweetheart. Not everyone is comfortable in formal settings. It's a skill like anything else." My brother refilled his wine glass. I picked up my fork and ate my burrata. Here's something I have learned about people like Astrid. They don't attack randomly. There's a calculation happening, even if they couldn't name it themselves. She walked into that room that evening representing a very specific kind of anxiety. The anxiety of someone who needs to establish the hierarchy before anyone else can. She comes from old Connecticut money that has become considerably less old and considerably less money in the last generation. She needs to be the most impressive person at every table she sits at, because the alternative is to feel what she actually is, which is someone building a persona out of borrowed confidence. She looked around that rehearsal dinner and identified me as the safe target, the quiet sister, the one in the $40 dress, the one sitting at the far end of the table who hadn't corrected anyone or demanded anything, the one who had by every observable metric the least social power in the room. She was doing math, the same math bullies have always done. The problem is she was working with bad numbers. After the main course, I excused myself. I didn't go to the bathroom. I went downstairs to the building manager's office, a small room off the service corridor on the ground floor, and I sat at the desk and opened my laptop. I pulled up the property management portal and navigated to the event booking for that evening. 42 guests, Friday dinner, paid in full 3 weeks ago. My brother's name on the contract, Astrid's name as co-host. I scrolled to the terms of service. Section 9, Clause C, Guest and Host Conduct. I had added this clause myself after an incident 2 years prior, when a corporate client's executive became aggressive with one of the building's maintenance staff during a private event and the venue had no legal mechanism to remove him. The clause gives building ownership the unilateral right to terminate a private event immediately if any host, co-host, or affiliated guest engages in harassment, intimidation, or discriminatory conduct toward any person on the property, including other guests. I had said nothing to Astrid, but I had a clear record. The event coordinator had been in the room, the staff had heard, and I had done nothing wrong. I sat in that office for 6 minutes. I thought about my brother not speaking. I thought about the year I ate peanut butter sandwiches for lunch every day for 4 months because I had wired money to my parents to make their mortgage payment and I couldn't afford groceries and I refused to tell anyone. I was 26. I was already in my first property deal, 18 months from my first real return, and I had almost nothing liquid. But when my mother called crying at 11 at night because the bank had sent another notice, I transferred what I had and figured out the rest later. I thought about the summer my brother needed $17,000 to keep his landscaping business from folding. He called our father, who called me. I wired the money in 3 transfers so it wouldn't flag anything. I told my brother it was a loan. He said, of course, absolutely. I'll pay you back within a year. That was 4 years ago. He has not mentioned it since, and when I have, gently, twice, he has found a reason to end the call. I thought about Astrid's voice. Not everyone is comfortable in formal settings. I closed the laptop. I walked back upstairs. I didn't go back to the family table. I walked to the front of the room, where the event coordinator had set up a small podium with a microphone for the evening's toasts. She was standing nearby adjusting a floral arrangement, and she looked up when she saw me. I need to address the room, I said. She blinked. Now? Now? You? To her credit, she read my face and moved out of the way. I stepped up to the microphone. I tapped it once. The sound cut through the ambient conversation and 42 people turned to look at me. The woman in the $40 dress who had been sitting at the wrong end of the table. Astrid laughed, the kind of laugh that is armor, and said to the table next to her, loud enough to carry, "Oh no, is she making a toast? This is going to be interesting." I let her finish. "Good evening," I said. "Most of you know me as the groom's sister. I want to take a moment to properly introduce myself because I realize some of you may not know the full picture." My brother stood up from his chair. "What are you doing?" "I'm introducing myself," I said. "Please sit down." He didn't sit. But he didn't come toward me either. He looked at Astrid. She gave him a small shake of her head like, let her embarrass herself. My name is June, I said. I've been in commercial real estate for 9 years. I specialize in acquiring and repositioning distressed properties in secondary markets across the Southeast and Pacific Northwest. I paused. This building is one of mine. The room shifted, not dramatically. More like when you've been listening to music and someone adjusts the bass. You feel it more than you hear it. Astrid's smile thinned. I purchased this property 14 months ago, I continued. The restaurant group that operates here is a tenant. I hold the deed. And as the property owner, I am also the ultimate authority over events held on this premises, which is outlined in the venue's terms of service, specifically Section 9, Clause C, which concerns conduct. This is insane, Astrid said. She was still trying to smile, but it wasn't reaching her face anymore. She's lying. She doesn't own this building. Someone look this up. You're welcome to, I said. The deed is public record. Mecklenburg County Courthouse. It's filed under Laurel Ridge Holdings, LLC. That's my company. My brother's face had gone the color of old chalk. June. I invoke Clause C, I said, still into the microphone, still calm. This event is terminated, effective immediately. The room detonated slowly, the way expensive things break, not all at once, but in stages. Astrid's mother stood up. Her chair scraped the concrete floor. You cannot do this. Do you understand how much this evening cost? Do you understand what you're doing to your own family? I understand exactly what I'm doing, I said. You're ruining your brother's wedding weekend because of a comment about a dress? Her voice had climbed an octave. This is unhinged. This is jealousy. This is a property rights conversation, I said. And you have 30 minutes to vacate the premises? Astrid had crossed to my brother and was gripping his arm. Say something, she hissed. Tell them she's not well. Tell them she's always been like this. My brother looked at me, and I watched something move across his face. Guilt, or the memory of guilt, or maybe just the recognition that he had made a serious miscalculation somewhere and was now facing the ledger. June, he said, his voice lower now, the performance gone. Come on. She was joking. It was a stupid comment. Can we just... Where's the $17,000, I said. Silence. The loan. 4 years ago, the one you said you'd repay within a year. He glanced around the room, 42 people waiting. That's not, he started. There's also the matter of the cosign on your 2019 apartment lease, I said, which you broke 6 months in, which went to collections in my name, which I paid to clear. $840. I pulled out my phone. I have the records. Stop, he said. And the $11,000 in 2021, which was also framed as a loan. June, stop. I'm not going to stop, I said, because for 11 years I have been stopping. I have been quiet in every room I ever walked into that had your name on the guest list. I have watched you take, and I have said nothing, because I believe that is what family does. And then tonight your fiancé called me poorly dressed in the building I own, and you sat 3 feet away, and you didn't say a word. The room was entirely still. I would like an apology, I said, from you and from Astrid. A real one, in front of these people who all just watched what happened. And if I get that apology, we can discuss the terms of the rest of this evening. My brother looked at Astrid. Astrid looked at her mother. Her mother looked at me like I was a weather system she hadn't predicted and couldn't account for. Astrid said, I'm not apologizing to you. Okay, I said. I nodded to the building manager who was standing at the side of the room. He spoke quietly into his radio. The kitchen closed. The bar stopped serving. 2 members of the security team, off-duty sheriff's deputies I'd contracted for the event season, appeared at the main entrance. I stepped down from the podium. My brother caught up with me near the coat check. He grabbed my arm and I stopped and turned around and looked at him with what I hope was zero expression, because I wasn't performing calm at that point. I was actually calm. The kind of calm that comes when you finally put something down that you've been carrying for a very long time. You can't do this, he said. The wedding is in 2 days. The venue for the wedding is a different property, I said. I have no authority there. He blinked. Then why? Because this is the building I own, I said, and she mocked me in it, and you let her. He looked at me for a long time. I could see him searching for the angle, the way to make this about my instability, my jealousy, my inability to let things go. He'd used those arguments before and they'd worked, because I'd always been the one who cared more about keeping the peace. I don't care about keeping the peace anymore. The debt, I said, all of it. The 17,000, the 840, the 11,000, and whatever Mum and Dad owe me. I've never pushed them on it, but the number exists and we both know it. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I had printed it before I flew out because I'd known, somewhere underneath everything, that this trip was going to end this way. It's itemized, with dates. I would like a repayment plan in writing by the end of the month. He stared at the paper. Or we can have a different conversation, I said. But that conversation starts with Astrid apologizing and you acknowledging what you've taken from me, your choice. He didn't take the paper. He turned and walked back toward the dining room where the 42 guests were collecting coats and bags and exchanging glances that would fuel 100 text threads by morning. I sat down at the bar, my bar technically, or at least the bar in my building, and I ordered a bourbon. The bartender was a young woman working her second month on the job, and she'd heard everything, and she poured a generous measure without being asked, and she didn't say anything, which was exactly right. I sat there and I drank it slowly. Here is what I have spent 11 years learning about the mathematics of family loyalty. When you are the one who handles things, who wires money at midnight, who co-signs and covers and quietly absorbs the damage, people stop seeing that as generosity. It becomes expected. And when things are expected, they stop generating gratitude. And when gratitude disappears, you stop being a person to the people who benefit from you. You become infrastructure, something load-bearing and invisible. You don't notice infrastructure until it threatens to stop holding things up. My brother noticed me that night, maybe for the first time in a long time. I flew back to Seattle the next morning. I didn't go to the wedding. I sent a card. 3 days later, my brother called. The voicemail was long. Some of it was anger, the kind that's actually embarrassment wearing a costume. Some of it was something else. Something quieter and harder to perform. He said he talked to Astrid. He said she hadn't realized I was actually in real estate, that she'd thought I was exaggerating when I'd mentioned it once years ago. He said he was sorry for not defending me. I don't know if I believe every part of that, but I listened to it twice. A week after that, he texted me a Venmo request for $500. A first payment, he wrote. There will be more. Monthly, if that works. It wasn't the number I wanted, but it was a number. What I have learned is that the people who benefit most from your silence will be the last ones to ask you to break it. That work, the quiet, thankless work of holding things together, of wiring money and co-signing and showing up, doesn't make you less. It makes you the person who actually knows what things cost. I know what things cost. I've been counting since I was 22. And I have finally stopped letting other people set the price. I've thought a lot about the moment my brother picked up his wine glass and looked away. Not at Astrid, not at me. Just away, like if he found something neutral to focus on. He wouldn't have to choose a side. I used to think that kind of cowardice was passive. I don't think that anymore. Choosing not to act is still a choice, and the bill for that choice eventually comes due. What I did that night at 11 Oaks wasn't anger. I want to be clear about that, because anger would have made me shake. Anger would have made my voice crack when I stepped up to that microphone. What I felt was closer to the opposite, a settling, like something that had been slightly off balance for a very long time had finally found its level. That's what happens when you stop pretending a situation is okay when it isn't. The honesty itself becomes the ground you stand on. I think about Astrid making her little comment about my dress and what she actually believed in that moment. She believed I was beneath her. She believed the hierarchy in that room was fixed and obvious, and that she was near the top of it, and that I was somewhere she didn't have to account for. That belief didn't come from cruelty exactly, it came from laziness. The laziness of never having had to look closely at someone before writing them off. She didn't know me, she'd never tried to. And that incuriosity, that failure to think carefully before she spoke, is what undid her. I've spent 9 years in an industry that punishes the incurious. You cannot survive in distressed real estate if you are not willing to sit with a spreadsheet and ask hard questions and be wrong and revise and ask again. The discipline of that, of actually thinking before you act, of doing the homework, of not assuming you already know the answer, has saved me more times than I can count. It saved me that night too in a different way. I had the clause, I had the deed, I had the receipts going back 11 years. Not because I was planning something, because I am someone who keeps records and pays attention. Knowledge isn't power by itself, but knowledge combined with the willingness to use it at the right moment. That's a different thing entirely. And then there's the question of why I kept helping for so long. I've turned this over 100 times. Part of it was love. Real love, not the performing kind. My brother was my brother. My parents were my parents. You don't stop caring about people because they've started taking you for granted. But I confused love with silence. I thought that keeping the peace, absorbing the cost, never asking for anything back. I thought that was generosity. It wasn't. It was a slow erosion of my own right to be seen. Real integrity means being honest about what you need, not just reliable about what you give. The hardest part wasn't standing at that microphone. The hardest part was the years before it. All the mornings I wired money and said nothing. All the dinners I sat to without correcting the record. All the times I chose their comfort over my own dignity. That's the part I'm still working through, because I can't go back and reclaim those years. But I can stop adding to the debt they accumulated against my silence. My brother sent $500. I don't know what comes after that. But I know this. I am no longer the infrastructure nobody thinks to maintain. I see what things cost. I always have. Now I'm just done pretending otherwise.